Hello there, brothers and sisters in Christ. God bless each and every single one of you. It is Hunter's Point here with another video. I pray that everybody is having a good New Year's Eve so far, wherever you all are at. I pray that you all are doing well today. Well, it's December 31st, and you know what that means. It is once again time for my year-end review and recap style video. This will be the fourth year of me releasing a year-end review. You know, it's hard to believe that we've already reached the final day of yet another calendar year, yet here we are. Seems like just yesterday we were closing out 2021 and ringing in this year, and now we're getting ready to close out this year and ring in 2023. Time really does fly, man. For me, it's felt like this, especially the last 5 years. I don't know about all of you watching, but at least for me personally, it seems like time has rapidly sped up. Like, even the bad days are going by exponentially quicker than I feel like they used to even 5 years ago, and especially 10 years ago. I mean, time really does fly. It's like before we know it, it'll be 2025 if the Lord wills for us to see 2025 and the rapture doesn't happen beforehand. It's just crazy to me how quickly time is flying by. And I will tell you this, not that I need to, but we have seen so much this year. And perhaps that would even be considered an understatement. I think it's definitely putting it lightly. This year has been just insane as it pertains to world news, Bible prophecy, current events, and how they really correlate with one another to really paint this picture of the times that we find ourselves living in. I mean, you hear it all the time. You know, the days of Lot and the days of Noah. Watch out, because in the last days, you will see times that resemble what Lot and what Noah saw. And I believe that we are right dead in the middle of the final moments of the end of days. We are seeing so much happening, and 2022 has proven to be no exception to the rule. So I'm going to get underway here with my year-end review. And for this year, I'm going to have a format that's kind of similar to what I've done with the previous two year-end reviews, where I've essentially gotten a grand total of 25 articles together, and I split them into 5 different categories. So the categories that we're going to be going over, there's 5 subsections. The first one is natural disasters. The second one pertains to Russia in Ukraine. The third one will be talking about China and Taiwan. And the fourth one will be discussing sort of the rise of beast system technology. That would obviously cover AI and the metaverse and digital currencies, so on and so forth. And the fifth and final category that I wanted to include here refers to lawlessness, right? Because we are at a point right now within our society where lawlessness is on the rise and is abounding like never before. So that will be the category that I choose to discuss last, will be lawlessness. So I wanted to maintain a structure that was similar to what I had done previous years. So I'm going to go ahead and start my news update now, even though this is my year-end review. Since we're essentially recapping news that has happened, I'm going to deliver this pretty similarly to how I would deliver sort of a standard world news update. So without any further ado, this is your 2022 year-end review. Let's get started here with the first category, natural disasters. I've got 5 articles that I'm going to be covering here, and pay close attention to the date, right? So understand that because this is a year-end review, I'm going over news that has happened throughout the year, right? So just keep in mind, you know, if I use phrases like today or yesterday or last week, I'm not actually referring to last week, but I'm referring to it within the context of the date that the articles were published. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here with natural disasters. This was January 14th of this year. Australia just reached their highest temperature on record, 123.26 degrees Fahrenheit. And again, this is actually matching their highest temperature ever recorded within the area. Australia just recorded one of its hottest days on record, with a coastal town reaching a temperature in the nation that had not been seen since 1960. CBS News stated that Onslow was 50.7 degrees Celsius, that is 123.26 degrees Fahrenheit, on Thursday. Again, this was the Thursday before the date that the article was published. A temperature that was last recorded in South Australia's outback on January 2nd of 1960. So it had been well over 60 years since a temperature of that magnitude was recorded in Australia. And this was according to the country's Bureau of Meteorology. And since Australia is in the southern hemisphere, its summer is opposite of the northern hemispheres. So summer would be from December 1st to February 28th of this year. That was Australia's 2022 summer, which is why Australia is experiencing hot temperatures in the month of January, because that is dead set in the middle of their yearly summer. Still, more than 123 degrees Fahrenheit is extremely hot. For comparison, the day before, the highest temperature recorded in the country was 46.5 degrees Celsius. That's nearly 116 degrees Fahrenheit in Western Australia. And according to phys.org, they had reported that Climate Council Research Director Dr. Martin Rice said the record was, quote, part of a long-term warming trend driven by, quote unquote, the burning of coal, oil, and gas, unquote. He said extreme temperatures were already having deadly catastrophic consequences in Australia. Heat waves are the silent killer in Australia. They cause more deaths than any other extreme weather events, he said. Australia has experienced a summer with bushfires in the country's west and deadly flooding on its eastern coast. Rice said that without a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, such record temperatures could become commonplace in the nation of Australia. Quote, in Sydney and Melbourne, we will see 50-degree summer days by 2030, and that's, of course, 50 degrees Celsius. They use Celsius as opposed to Fahrenheit. So, I mean, you're talking 120-plus degree temperatures when you look at the Fahrenheit side of that scale. Those are temperatures that Australia is widely expecting to see in the summers ahead. 2030 is just sort of a conservative estimate, but they are just coming out directly. They're not even trying to hide what their thoughts are here. They've made it very clear that they believe within the nation of Australia that this will be a yearly thing where you see temperatures of anywhere from 110 to 124 degrees Fahrenheit, pretty much on a constant daily basis during their yearly summers. So that is what's going on in Australia. And of course, now they're not having to deal with the brutal temperatures. I mean, yes, they are in the midst of their summer, but they're not seeing these exact temperatures yet. But I think it's safe to assume, based off this article, that they're probably going to be seeing more of that between now and March 1st of next year. So that is the situation in Australia. Now, we go on to one of the worst hurricanes that we've seen in quite some time, Hurricane Nicole, which left a trail of structural damage along the coastline, which was described as unprecedented. This article came out November the 11th. The full extent of the damage left behind by Hurricane Nicole is still not known entirely because the storm has left some homes and condo buildings teetering on the edge of collapse. Nicole came ashore as a hurricane in Florida and quickly moved across the state. At least 2 people died after being electrocuted due to the storm and the damage that was caused. Powerful waves ate away at vulnerable beaches already damaged by Hurricane Ian, causing some homes to collapse. Officials in one county, have declared dozens of structures, homes and condo and hotel buildings unsafe for occupation. The structural damage along our coastline is unprecedented, according to Volusia County Manager George Rechtenwald, and what he said in a statement. He went on to further state, "We have never experienced anything like this before. So we ask for your patience as we make our assessments. As always, the safety of our residents and visitors is our top priority. This is going to be a long road to recovery." County and municipal building inspectors declared at least 24 hotels and condo buildings unsafe and ordered occupants to evacuate them. In the aftermath of Hurricane Nicole. It was according to WFTV, which is a local station out there. Another 25 single-family homes in Wilbur by the Sea were also declared structurally unsafe. Some had already collapsed as waves washed away their backyards. A county official said as many as 40 homes in the county were deemed unsafe. Christian Ochme has lived in Wilbur by the Sea his entire life, and he described seeing a house hanging by a thread over the dune. Quote, "We were standing there watching, and we started to hear some cracking noises, and the house started to fall into the beach," he told the New York Times. "It made such a huge sound, a crashing, sort of like a car accident sound. Insulation and glass started flying up. It was a wild sight. It's pretty surreal," he said, adding that storms these days are a lot more powerful than when he was growing up. In nearby New Smyrna Beach, Hurricane Ian had already washed away the dunes protecting homes, which therefore made the impacts of Hurricane Nicole even worse. Joel Blake told WFTV he went to check on his home and found the sand under the foundation was gone. It was gone. Hurricane Ian was bad enough, and it made a lot of these areas more vulnerable to the impacts of hurricanes that are less severe. Hurricane Nicole is proof of this fact. Now, for the third article, this was a recent event. This would have taken place around December 14th, and it detailed a severe weather outbreak that took place in the Deep South region. Deadly storms spawned dozens of tornadoes across the South, causing multiple deaths, injuries, and a lot of damage. And I think that picture says it all right there. I mean, you're definitely not one of the wider tornadoes I've ever seen, but you have to understand, even tornadoes that look like this can cause quite a large amount of damage. So when it comes to tornadoes, believe me, looks can be deceiving. A line of powerful storms moving across the South turned deadly in Louisiana after causing destruction in Texas and Oklahoma. A tornado hit the New Orleans metropolitan area, damaging multiple structures and taking down power lines. Thousands were left without power as a result, as I'm sure you all can imagine. Earlier during this event, a woman and a young boy were killed when a tornado touched down in Louisiana's Caddo Parish, south of Shreveport, according to the local sheriff's office. Deputies went door to door after about 20 to 30 homes were damaged in the community of Keithville, according to KTAL and what they had released in a report. 2 people were taken to the hospital. About 90 miles to the northeast, nearly 25 people were injured when a tornado struck the town of Farmerville, Louisiana. And this was the evening before this New Orleans event. Rescuers continued to search late into the night. Tornadoes tearing through Louisiana and Mississippi Wednesday, again, this was the Wednesday of December 14th, brought with it deadly hazards, injured dozens, and wrought mass destruction. Photos that were captured throughout the day showcase the devastation that took place across the states. The second consecutive day of what was a, I believe, 3-day severe weather outbreak, but the first and second day were obviously the worst days, of the outbreak that hit the southern area of the United States. Officials in St. Bernard Parish have confirmed that a tornado touched down in the New Orleans suburb of Arabi, Louisiana, causing major damage as a result of the storm. Local firefighters and police were assessing the damage, and officials urged residents to stay out of the area until further notice. A local news camera captured the tornado on the ground in Arabi and the lower Ninth Ward. Arabi and lower Ninth Ward have been beleaguered with severe weather this year, as the area was also hit with a tornado that rampaged through the area back in March, destroying dozens of homes and buildings in the process. An apparent tornado has hit the West Bank area of New Orleans in the late afternoon hours of the December 14th time period, damaging local homes and businesses. At approximately 4:30 p.m. local time, photos were released of a street that was completely torn up by the storm, sending debris flying. Off the West Bank Expressway in Marrero, about 9 miles to the southwest of downtown New Orleans, structural damage was seen at a local Winn-Dixie grocery store. The tornado and storms in New Orleans, Jefferson, and St. Bernard parishes had left more than 30,000 customers without power at the time of this article's publishing. So that is the news coming out of the Deep South, as they have been hammered with numerous severe weather outbreaks. And unfortunately, New Orleans has been seemingly at the center of a couple pretty bad and relatively large wedge-shaped tornadoes. So that is the news that had come out this year regarding the New Orleans Metro. Now, for the fourth and fifth articles, we are going to be talking about the record-setting Buffalo blizzard that is very recent. It just took place. They are still dealing with the aftermath of this severe winter cyclone storm. Buffalo buried in what is being deemed as record-setting snowfall. The National Guard has been deployed, rolling blackouts have been instituted, 1 million people are without power, and highways have been shut down as a direct result of the blizzard and, quite frankly, the blizzard-like conditions. Look at that. I mean, look, obviously dangerous, very dangerous, but you can't deny that's a beautiful photo. I've always been a fan of snow, but I don't like the kind of snowy conditions that put people in danger, right? So make no mistakes about it. This was an extremely, extremely dangerous blizzard, but that picture really tells you everything I mean, you could even see in the image the blowing snow that was occurring during the time of that blizzard. The same powerful storm that brought blizzard-like conditions and severe cold to a large portion of the central U.S. has generated a major lake effect snow event into the Christmas weekend. According to AccuWeather, conditions have turned deadly, with 3 fatalities reported in the greater Buffalo area as of this past Saturday. On Saturday morning, 2 fatalities from the storm were announced by Erie County Executive Mark Palonkars, with both occurring in Cheektowaga, about 7 miles to the east of downtown Buffalo. The deaths were categorized as emergency medical events that responders could not get to. A third death was reported Saturday afternoon. And again, this was last Saturday afternoon, not today. This would have been last Saturday afternoon, as a body was found in the city, according to a Buffalo police spokesperson. Palonkars added that Erie County, New York, where Buffalo is located, is preparing to encounter more fatalities as search and rescue missions continue throughout the day and the remainder of the week. And I know for a fact that there are still search and rescue missions going on within the Buffalo metropolitan area. Members of the National Guard were out in Erie County Saturday morning working to get people out of stranded cars, targeting the hardest hit areas, including Buffalo and the surrounding north towns. During Friday and overnight Saturday, local first responders and emergency equipment were unable to reach some of the hardest hit spots, including Buffalo. Unable to even go a few blocks, according to Palonkars. Getting first responders back online is our top priority, he said. In Buffalo, the storm will likely at least jump near the top of the list of the worst blizzards to ever take place in the city's entire history, if not even becoming, without a doubt, the worst, according to AccuWeather meteorologist Jake Suja, and what he had said in a local statement. 4 to 6 feet of snow will fall by Sunday. That ended up happening, and coupled with wind gusts approaching hurricane force winds, 74 miles per hour or greater, to create enormous drifts and impossible travel. That also ended up happening if you've been keeping up with some of the local news outlets. It was a horrific, horrific blizzard. That's why I say, as beautiful as that picture was, make no mistake about it, this blizzard was horrible. People are still dealing with the immediate impacts and effects of this lake effect induced blizzard. A blizzard is defined by the National Weather Service as sustained or wind gusts to 35 miles per hour or greater, with visibility of 1/4 of a mile or less in snow or blowing snow for at least 3 consecutive hours. This far went beyond those guidelines. This was as textbook of a blizzard as you can possibly get. The storm began as a rain event for Buffalo, with the city receiving almost 2 inches on that previous Friday, breaking the prior daily record of 1.73 inches that had stood since 1878. As Arctic air rushed in, however, rain changed to heavy snow, and that obviously led to the blizzard-like conditions. The Buffalo airport had recorded 0-mile visibility for nearly 16 hours, from midday Friday to the early morning hours of Christmas Eve last Saturday. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has mobilized the National Guard to Erie County as a massive winter storm has battered the Buffalo region. New Yorkers are experiencing a life-threatening and dangerous winter storm with freezing temperatures and coastal flooding statewide, and snow and ice, particularly in western and northern New York, Hochul said in a December 23rd statement. The Guard members will assist residents, particularly those who need assistance traveling for emergency medical reasons. I want to assure New Yorkers, quote unquote, that all of our state resources are deployed to help with storm recovery efforts, and we are coordinating closely with local officials across the entire state. And that was again according to New York Governor Kathy Hochul. The storm, which was dubbed Winter Storm Elliott by the Weather Channel, has ravaged the Midwest and Northeast over the past week or so. Obviously, the system has moved out, but the effects are still very much being felt. As of Saturday morning, this would have been Christmas Eve, the Buffalo airport has clocked nearly 28 inches of snowfall, according to the National Weather Service. And the power outages are continuing to be an issue, as you have about 1.4 million homes and businesses left in the dark, according to the website Power Outage, which tracks daily utility reports. More than 200 million people were under an advisory or warning December 23rd, leading into this blizzard event, according to the National Weather Service. And you better believe it has very much lived up to its name. And nearly 5,000 flights within, into, or out of the U.S. were canceled on the 23rd, according to the tracking site FlightAware, causing more mayhem as travelers try to make it home for the holidays. Quote, we've just got to stay positive, according to Wendell Davis, who plays basketball with the team in France and was waiting at O'Hare Airport in Chicago on Friday after a series of flight cancellations. This blizzard ended up living up to its name. This was an unprecedented blizzard, the likes of which will likely not be seen, hopefully not again anyways, for quite a long period of time. So that is the initial article that had come out regarding the Buffalo blizzard. I want to go ahead and transition right into the fifth article of our natural disasters category, which is sort of a part two to the Buffalo blizzard situation. At least 50 people are feared dead from winter bomb cyclone. Bodies found frozen in cars. It could go down as the worst in Buffalo's history. Look at that. Goodness gracious. Please pray for all those who are still having to deal with the impacts of this horrific storm that took place roughly 6 days to a week ago. At least 50 people are feared to have been killed as a huge winter storm continues to pummel the United States. According to The Sun, thousands of Americans still remain without power, and drivers have been found dead in their cars after being left stranded on snow-covered highways and interstates. Temperatures plunged to a dangerously cold minus 53 degrees Fahrenheit in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, when the wind chill was taken into account in the run-up to Christmas, according to the National Weather Service. At least 46 people in the United States are feared to have died, with 4 additional deaths reported in British Columbia, Canada. Officials revealed that 13 people had been found dead in Buffalo, New York, amid the bomb cyclone, and warned that the death toll is unfortunately likely to rise. William Romero Clay was named as one of the victims after being found dead. He vanished in the snowstorm on Friday, this would have been, again, last Friday, after leaving his home to go to the store. Bodies were reportedly found in their vehicles on highways along Cheektowaga, New York, which is around the Buffalo area. At least 12 victims have been reported in Erie County, with the ages ranging between 26 and 93. Officials have revealed that 10 people in Ohio have been killed, while 6 people have died in crashes in Missouri, Kansas, and Kentucky. New York Governor Kathy Hochul said almost every fire truck in Buffalo was stranded, and the airport would be shut down all the way through Monday. That would have been just this previous Monday. We're in a war. We're in a war with Mother Nature, the governor said at a Sunday morning news briefing. And she's been hitting us with everything she has, Hochul said. The storm would go down as the worst in Buffalo's history. She feared that the death toll would unfortunately rise. Hochul said that there were people that still need to be rescued. 2 people died in their suburban areas of Cheektowaga, New York, homes Friday when emergency crews could not reach them in time to treat their medical conditions. And another person actually died in Buffalo. 4 more deaths were confirmed overnight, bringing the Erie County total to 7 as of the time of this article's publication. County Executive Mark Polankars warned that there may be more deaths coming. Some were found in their cars. Some were found on the street in snowbanks, he said. We know there are people who have been stuck in cars for more than 2 days, if you can believe that. Freezing conditions and day-old power outages have had Buffalonians scrambling to get out of their homes to anywhere that had a source of heat. But with city streets under a thick blanket of white, that wasn't an option for people like Jeremy Mahanhan. I'm sure I butchered that name. I apologize. And he had charged his phone in his parked car after almost 29 hours with no electricity. Quote, there's one warming shelter, but that would be too far for me to be able to get to. I can't drive, obviously, because we're stuck in these conditions, he said. And he can't be outside for more than 10 minutes without getting some frostbite. You have to be careful in conditions like what was seen in Buffalo last Friday through Sunday. And there was another man who was on his way to visit relatives in Hamilton, Ontario for Christmas with his daughters on Friday when their SUV was trapped in Buffalo. Unable to get help, they spent hours with the engine running in the vehicle, buffeted by wind and nearly buried in snow. And that was Ditchak Ilunga of Gaithersburg, Maryland. Him and his family were on their way to see extended family members when the Buffalo blizzard had hit and their SUV was trapped. So at least 50 people, as of the time of this article's publication, at least 50 people are feared dead as a result of the Buffalo blizzard and what is now being called easily the worst blizzard in Buffalo history. Just a lot has happened in the realm of natural disasters, and as you are now seeing, as if you needed this point hammered home any further, 2022 was no exception to the rule. It has been crazy with natural disasters. We have seen countless volcanic eruptions and numerous earthquakes. Again, I had to narrow this down to 5 articles. I could have gone on even further. I could have picked 100 articles. That's how much has gone on here. But I really wanted to try to build this year-end review in a way where you're sort of just summarizing a few of the big events that have occurred throughout the year. And natural disasters are among the top of that list of the crazy things that have happened this year. Now, just give me a quick moment, and I'm going to start closing out tabs, and we're going to pull up our next 5 articles. This is for subsection number 2, which will have to do with Russia and Ukraine. A lot has happened, as I'm sure you all have seen if you've been following, extended news coverage. This year has not let up in the realm of Russia and Ukraine. Let me go ahead and get my 5th article up there. And we're going to go ahead and start here with the first article, and this is, again, subsection 2, entitled Russia and Ukraine. Let me get a drink real quick. Let's go ahead and start here. Dozens are left dead in Ukraine following the first wave of attacks from Russia. Biden warns of catastrophic loss of life. Thousands are fleeing the country. This was February 24th of this year, right when the official Russian invasion of Ukraine officially started. This was the initial attack. Russian military attacks on Ukraine have killed at least 40 people during this initial attack, according to an advisor to the Ukrainian president and what they had said in a statement to the Associated Press. Air raid sirens rang out in the capital of Kiev as Russian missile strikes were reported in multiple cities all across Ukraine. moments after Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a special military operation in the country that was part of the Soviet Union until its collapse back in 1991. Anton Grishko, an advisor to Ukraine's interior minister, said on Facebook that Russia's military had unleashed missile attacks on Ukrainian military command facilities, air bases, and military depots in Kiev, Kharkiv, and Dnipro, according to a translation by the Associated Press. Ukraine's border guard agency reported troops were returning fire against Russian troops that had launched an artillery barrage in a Belarus backed assault, per an Associated Press translation. Russia had extended its military drills in Belarus in the days leading up to this initial assault. Ukraine announced the closure of its airspace to civilian flights. And Europe's aviation regulator warned against flying near the Ukraine Belarus border, Reuters notes. Biden promised, an empty promise, as I'm sure you figured by now, he promised Ukraine President Zelensky in a phone call additional U.S. support, and that our allies and partners will be imposing severe sanctions on the nation of Russia. This was according to a White House readout that came out moments after the initial assault took place. The prayers of the entire world are with the people of Ukraine as they suffer an unprovoked and unjustified attack and invasion by Russian military forces, Biden said. Vladimir Putin has chosen a premeditated war that will bring with it a catastrophic loss of life, as well as human suffering, he added. Russia alone is responsible for the death and destruction this attack will bring, and the United States and its allies and partners will respond in a united and decisive way. The world will hold Russia accountable. Dozens were left dead in the initial attack, which has, of course, led, as you all have seen, to a large scale invasion that has left tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands dead as a result. Going to go on here to Article 2. Russia and Ukraine war has reached a dangerous level. Zelensky vows to take revenge as a nuke plant was put at risk of disaster. Volodymyr Zelensky has vowed revenge on Russia after Putin's forces rained missiles down on a train station, killing 25 people, including an 11-year-old boy, in a savage Independence Day attack. The boy was killed when a missile struck his house in Chaplin, and 24 people died later when rockets hit the rural town's railway station and set fire to 5 train carriages during this attack. According to the Daily Mail, the small town of 3,500 people lies in the Dnipropetrovsk region. I'm telling you, I butchered that. You all can read it here. That is the region that saw this unfortunate attack. The scene of intense recent fighting between Ukrainian and Kremlin forces took place within this small town of 3,500 people. Zelensky said in a late-night address, "Chaplin is our pain today. As of moment, there are 25 dead, 5 of them burned in the car, an 11-year-old boy died, and a Russian missile destroyed his house. Search and rescue operations have continued in the immediate days following this attack, as they unfortunately found more victims, and they have made the occupiers bear responsibility for everything that they have done. And we will certainly drive the invaders out of our land." The wartime president had previously warned that the erratic Russian dictator would use the killing of the daughter of his ultra-nationalist aide Alexander Dugin, dubbed Putin's Rasputin, and a car bombing in Moscow last week as a pretext to ratchet up his war on the embattled European country. And again, this is within the context of this article's publication. Ukraine's Independence Day marked 31 years since its rupture from the Soviet Union, which was also predicted to see a surge in attacks. While most fighting is now taking place in the east and south, where the fighting is stalled, Russia regularly strikes Ukrainian cities with long-range missiles, according to Kiev. And you're seeing this continue to take place throughout Kremlin-controlled areas, as well as areas that are still being contested by Ukraine. They are firing numerous missiles and drones into Ukraine. Their forces are continuing to go from city to city, village to village, with weapons to forcibly seize control of the region. They don't care how many people end up getting killed in the process. It has been a remarkably dangerous time in that area of the world. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has reached dangerous levels, and unfortunately, as you can see, it's only getting more and more dangerous. Third article, Russia threatens missile attacks on Ukraine's big cities in revenge for Crimea bridge explosion. This article was published on October the 9th. Top pro-Kremlin propagandist Solovyov, I'm sorry again, guys, I know I'm butchering some of these names, but this was the top pro-Kremlin propagandist. He's demanding a brutal Stalinist response to plunge Ukraine into dark times and round up all Russians against total war in the wake of the humiliating hit on the Crimean Bridge. Alluding to an enemy within, this propagandist called for a return of the notorious Stalin-era Smersh counterintelligence to crush all eternal and external opposition to a full-scale war against Ukraine. Smersh, whose motto was "Death to Spies," was a conglomeration of counterintelligence agencies used by Stalin to root out and obliterate those trying to subvert his regime during and after World War II. It's time to remember Soviet military training and act decisively and creatively, he said. Not responding to the enemy's actions, but breaking their plans, striking unexpected blows in directions where the enemy is not expecting them. Ukraine should be plunged into dark times. Bridges, dams, railways, thermal power plants, and other infrastructure facilities should be destroyed all throughout Ukraine. The country should switch to a military mode entirely. This should include Smersh making a return, Solyov declared. Everything for the front, everything for victory, he said. Meanwhile, a pair of Russian governors spoke of their desire for revenge following the attack on the Kerch Bridge connecting Crimea to mainland Russia, with one deputy claiming that devastating Sarmat missiles will target Ukrainian cities. The deputy governor of Russia's southern Stavro region exclaimed the following: Ukrainians, leave your cities, especially the large ones, because a big surprise is waiting for you. Sarmat missiles are ready to strike, in a menacing video that had circulated all over Twitter. Crimea's Russian-installed governor, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name, Sergei A. is what I'm going to call him, declared there is a healthy desire to seek revenge following the explosion, which destroyed parts of the Kerch Bridge that had connected Crimea to mainland Russia. The situation is manageable. It's unpleasant, but it's not fatal. But they are most certainly wanting to continue getting their revenge on Ukraine as a result of the bridge being targeted. Of course, emotions have been triggered, and there is a healthy desire to seek revenge. According to local Russian outlets, rocket attacks have already rained down on the southern Ukrainian region of Zaporizhia since the bridge explosion, killing more than a dozen people in the immediate wake. The strikes came as Russia's deputy prime minister deployed a team of divers to inspect the structure's underwater foundations for further damage and to search for evidence. The divers began work at 6 o'clock this morning and are expected to spend the entire day combing the area underwater to ensure the bridge is structurally sound. And they are continuing to deal with the aftermath of the bridge attack, and they are continuing to ruthlessly target Ukraine as a result. And again, I'm not always going to read these entire articles word for word, but all of them will be linked in the description box below if you ever wanted to go through and read them and comb through them yourselves. But I sort of wanted to give you, for this particular year-end review, I wanted to give you more of a recap of what is going on, as the Russia-Ukraine conflict has not died down. Many hundreds of thousands have been killed. The Russia-Ukraine war has reached supremely dangerous levels. They're continuing to exchange missiles and rocket attacks as a result especially of the Crimea Bridge being destroyed. And then now, as of November 12th, you have Russian troops aiming to destroy a Ukraine dam, which they were successful at. Putin orders a new batch of hypersonic nuclear-capable missiles that they claim is unstoppable to Western air defenses. Russian troops destroyed a key Ukrainian dam before fleeing Kherson, dressed as civilians in the latest humiliation for deranged despot Vladimir Putin. Incredible footage showed the moment that the dam was destroyed. This was on the Dnipro River, and they were blown up by retreating Russian soldiers. Alleged war criminal President Vladimir Putin has suffered significant reputational damage because of the retreat, according to the UK Ministry of Defense and what they had said in a statement. Putin's army was caught on CCTV blowing up the hydroelectric dam before another explosion erupted along the power lines from the dam. The video will be seen as evidence of deliberate destruction by the Russians as they withdraw from key locations in Kherson. It is unclear whether soldiers destroyed the bridge as revenge for having to leave the city, or whether it was a more tactical move, since the dam also has a motorway and railway over the Dnipro River into the Kherson region. It appears Russia has also destroyed the Antonovsky Bridge, which is the other main crossing point over the Dnipro River into the Kherson region. Images showed a large chunk of the bridge collapsed into the water below. Kherson was one of the first Ukrainian cities captured in the war Moscow waged on its neighbor from February 24th. It was the only regional capital Moscow captured in the 9 months since Russia's invasion. The retreat, which was ordered amid a Ukrainian counteroffensive, represents a huge blow to President Vladimir Putin of Russia, who has so far remained silent on the development. Losing the Kherson region means Russia no longer has uninterrupted land access to Crimea, which Moscow annexed from Ukraine back in 2014. As Putin's troops retreated from the region, some have even resorted to dressing up in civilian clothing as they try to escape, according to the MOD. Ukraine's liberated the city of Kherson, and this would have been back on November the 11th, after 8 months under Russian occupation, with soldiers treated to a hero's welcome by jubilant crowds as they arrived in the city center. Ukrainian President Zelensky declared Kherson ours as Ukrainians liberated it from Russian forces. An advisor to the Ukrainian defense minister has said there is panic in Russian ranks, while Defense Secretary Ben Wallace said the retreat from Kherson marked another strategic failure for Moscow and humiliation for Vladimir Putin's army. He said, quote, "In February, Russia failed to take any of its major objectives except Kherson. Now, with that also being surrendered, ordinary people of Russia must surely ask themselves, what was it all for? What was it all for?" The Russian army has suffered a huge loss of life as a result of their illegal invasion and have only achieved international isolationism and humiliation as a result. Ukraine will press on. The UK and the international community will continue to support them. And while the withdrawal is welcome, no one is going to underestimate the continuing threat posed by the Russian Federation. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin has put in a new order for dozens of cutting-edge hypersonic Zircon nuclear-capable missiles, which travel at speeds of nearly 7,000 miles per hour, it was revealed on November the 12th. The Mach 9 weapon, known in Russia as Zircon, is due to be in service this year or early next year. I know that there have still been delays on getting those missiles. The Russian president has poured money into developing new nuclear-capable missiles, which he claims are unstoppable by Western air defenses. Whether this will actually happen remains to be seen. The first contact for the production of a batch of Zircons was signed back in the summer of 2021, according to a source that's close to the Russian Defense Ministry. And now this new order's been placed in. Through delays, they're hoping to get these missiles by early next year. They hadn't fully announced it yet as of the November 12th update, but since then they have come out and have announced that yes, they have ordered these missiles and they hope to get them relatively soon. So, as if what Russia has done to Ukraine already wasn't enough, now they're wanting a bunch of nuclear capable missiles that they can fire into Ukraine at will. Leaves me curious as to what we are going to be seeing next year as it pertains to the Russia Ukraine theater. Last but certainly not least is an article that just came out 2 days ago. Russia launches their largest missile strike in weeks. Over 120 rockets and kamikaze drones have bombarded Ukraine. Russia has pounded Ukraine with at least 120 different missiles in one of the biggest bombardments of the war so far. Waves of rockets fired from the sea and the air targeted major cities, including the capital of Kiev, as well as Kharkiv in the east and Lviv and Odessa in the west. Explosions were heard across the country, and at least 3 people were reported wounded in Kiev, including a girl of only 14 years of age. Photos showed the burning wrecks of private homes in the Darnitsa district of the capital back on the 29th. This is what Russia's New Year terror looks like, according to the deputy head of the president's office. Victims were rushed to the hospital after homes were hit by debris from one of 16 missiles downed over Kiev. And that was according to Mayor Vitaly Klitschko, who is the mayor of Kiev. He added, so far, 2 people have been rescued from a damaged private house. Rescuers continue to search and rescue operations. They continue those operations even as of now. Rocket debris also managed to damage a car on one of the central streets. The strikes knocked out electricity supplies to 40% of the city, according to the mayor. Meanwhile, around 90% of Lviv was without power, suggesting Russia was once again deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure. Another series of explosions hit civilian neighborhoods in Ukraine's second city, Kharkiv, according to their mayor, Igor Terikov. Blasts were also heard in some of the surrounding areas, such as Odessa and Zhytomyr. And that was according to local media coverage. And a family had a miracle escape when a cruise missile crashed through their home but failed to detonate in Ranok, a village in the Ivano-Frankivsk region. Ukraine's Air Force Command said on social media, massive missile attack. The enemy is attacking Ukraine from various directions with air and sea-based cruise missiles from strategic aircraft and ships. More than 120 missiles were fired, according to presidential aide Podolyak. They accused Moscow of seeking to destroy critical infrastructure and kill civilians in the process. And he added, ironically, we're waiting for further proposals from quote-unquote peacekeepers. Ukraine claimed it shot down dozens of incoming missiles. Video footage shared online appeared to show one cruise missile dodging a rocket before being hit by another and going down in flames. The bombardment followed an overnight kamikaze drone attack on several Ukrainian regions. That would have been back on December the 28th, just 3 days ago. The attacks unfortunately continue all throughout Ukraine on behalf of Russia. So that will conclude subsection number 2, Russia and Ukraine. Now, if you just give me one moment, I'm going to go ahead and put up the next 5 articles that we're going to be going over as it pertains to the China-Taiwan tensions. And I believe it would be fair to say that the tensions are only continuing to rise, even in comparison to the tensions that were seen last year. As you'll remember when I covered in my 2021 year-end review, tensions were escalating. Well, unfortunately, throughout all of this year, those tensions have only continued to escalate. Let me get another quick drink of water, and then we'll start here with subsection 3 as it pertains to China and Taiwan. So this was back on January 24th. China ended up flying 39 warplanes towards Taiwan in a show of force as tensions with the island nation continue to rise. China has flown dozens of warplanes towards Taiwan in its largest display of power for the new year, and it's continued onwards throughout the year. Trust me on that. Continuing a pattern that caused the island to scramble its own jets in response. The formation of 39 jets that took place back in early January included 24 J-16 fighter jets and 10 of the J-10 jets, among other support and electronic warfare aircraft, according to Taiwan's defense ministry. Taiwan's Air Force tracked the People's Liberation Army planes on its air defense radar systems, it added. Chinese pilots have been flying towards Taiwan on a near daily basis, and I can attest, even for this month, it's continued, unfortunately, as you'll see in these last couple of articles. Taiwan's government has started publishing the data very regularly that the Chinese Communist regime continues flying dozens of warplanes into Taiwanese airspace. The largest sortie was 56 warplanes on a single day that took place in October of 2021. The Chinese sortie came as the U.S. military said that two of its carrier strike groups were sailing into the South China Sea, led by USS Carl Vinson and USS Abraham Lincoln. They engaged in anti-submarine, air, and combat readiness operations. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs declined to comment on why the PLA had flown such a large sortie on the day of this incident, saying that it was not a diplomatic matter. Taiwan and China split during a civil war back in 1949, but China claims the island as its own territory. Beijing has used diplomatic and military means to isolate and intimidate the self-ruled island, but the United States has continued to support Taiwan by selling it advanced weapons and fighter planes. Chinese pilots have been flying towards Taiwan on a near daily basis in the past year and a half since Taiwan's government started publishing the data regularly. The largest sortie, again, was 56 warplanes on a single day recorded in October of 2021. The activity has generally been in the airspace southwest of the island and falls into a zone that Taiwan's military says it monitors out of national security considerations. Tensions have been high since Taiwanese citizens elected Tsai Ing-wen as president in 2016, to which Beijing responded by cutting off previously established communications with the island's government. Tsai's predecessor was friendly to China and had endorsed Beijing's claim that the two are part of a single Chinese nation. The U.S. regularly carries out exercises in the South China Sea in what it calls freedom of navigation operations in line with international law. Now, could we be on the brink of World War III as a result of not only the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but as a result of these continued escalations between China and Taiwan? That remains to be seen, as China eyes Taiwan as its own at the same time that Russia's testing the world with Ukraine. China isn't backing down from its claim to ownership of Taiwan, and Beijing may be closely observing the world's reaction to Russia's invasion of Ukraine to weigh if the cost of launching an assault against Taiwan would be worth the risk associated with it. Beijing wants the reunification of Taiwan with mainland China, and growing tensions between the two have prompted warnings from the United States that America will back Taiwan in the event of a war. China questioned America's commitment to Taiwan, and while Beijing claims there's no comparison between its relationship with Taiwan and Russia's relationship with Ukraine, a soft approach to Russia could factor into China's decision making as it pertains to Taiwan. On Wednesday, this was the Wednesday of February 24th, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying told reporters that Taiwan is for sure not Ukraine. Hua claimed that the territory for China, calling it an inalienable part of the country, is to be considered part of the country as a result, a belief that Hua labeled an indisputable historical and legal fact. It's a talking point China's held firm to despite pressure from Western leaders to respect Taiwan's sovereignty. Former President Donald Trump has predicted that China will invade Taiwan after taking inspiration from Russia moving troops into Ukraine. During an interview on the conservative talk radio program The Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, Trump suggested that Chinese President Xi Jinping would follow the example of his twin sister nation of Russia and the antics of Russian President Vladimir Putin by staging an invasion on the disputed island. Now, whether that actually happens or not remains to be seen. We obviously know what has happened between Russia and Ukraine, but will China officially invade Taiwan? That is the part that we are waiting on. But we are surely on the brink of something as China continues to sound the horn that Taiwan belongs to them and that they will do anything to take what is theirs. And this further has escalated into a point where we are seeing continuous rumors of wars, as China has surrounded Taiwan for massive invasion rehearsal drills. The Chinese military deployed forces all around the island of Taiwan over the weekend in a set of large-scale military drills that one Chinese military analyst called a rehearsal of possible real-life action. The Chinese People's Liberation Army announced its Eastern Theater Command organized maritime, aerial, conventional missile, and other forces around Taiwan and carried out drills around the island that took place around May 11th. And it was set to just be a rehearsal, but come on now, we know that this is likely going to lead to the real deal eventually happening. While Taiwan governs itself as an independent nation, China considers the island to be a part of its territory, and Chinese officials have repeatedly discussed reunification with the island, including by any means necessary, by means of military force. The Chinese state-run Global Times publication reported maritime, aerial, conventional missile, and other forces participated in the drills around Taiwan. They're gearing up for war. During the drills, China's Liaoning aircraft carrier deployed east of the island, while a large number of Chinese aircraft and warships carried out drills to the island's west. And this is just a precursor of what I believe will eventually be seen. Taiwan has conducted invasion drills among what is going on currently with China, but as well as Nancy Pelosi's visit to the nation back on the July 25th time period. Taiwan's capital staged air raid drills Monday, and its military mobilized for routine defense exercises, coinciding with concerns over a forceful Chinese response to a possible visit to the island by U.S. Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She was the speaker at the time, of course. While there was no direct link between China's renewed threats and Taiwan's defensive moves, they underscore the possibility of a renewed crisis in the Taiwan Strait, considered a potential hotspot for conflict that could end up enveloping the entire region. Air raid sirens were sounded in the capital of Taipei, and the military was holding its annual multi-day Hanquang drills, including joint air and sea exercises, and the mobilization of tanks and troops. In Taipei, police directed people to shelters when a siren went off shortly after lunchtime. Streets had emptied and shops had closed as a result. In recent years, Chinese military planes have frequently harassed Taiwan, and the war between Russia and Ukraine broke out this past February, he told reporters, referencing concerns that a similar conflict could break out in Eastern Asia. I personally believe that that is very likely to happen at this point. All these things make us understand the importance of being vigilant in times of peace, and that we need to be prepared if there is war. Pelosi has not confirmed when or even if she will visit again, but Biden had told reporters that U.S. military officials believed that such a trip was not a good idea. You think? Of course it isn't the best idea. Administration officials are believed to be critical of a possible trip, both for the problematic timing and the lack of coordination with the White House. China's authoritarian ruling Communist Party considers democratic, self-ruling Taiwan its own territory, to be annexed by force if necessary. and regularly advises that threat by staging military exercises and flying warplanes into Taiwan's air defense identification zone or across the center line of the 180-kilometer wide Taiwan Strait. They view that as something that they can do at any time, and perhaps something that even needs to be done in the eyes of the Chinese Communist Party. Beijing says those actions are aimed at deterring advocates of the island's formal independence and foreign allies, principally the United States, from interfering. More than 70 years after the side split amidst civil war. Surveys routinely show that Taiwan's 23 million people reject China's assertions that the island is to be considered a Chinese province and has rather confirmed their already existing independence. They should not stray, according to the 23 million people that live within Taiwan. Taiwan is an independent nation. China is trying everything in their power, even if that means eventually getting forceful, to get essentially a reunification process underway. To reunify the island of Taiwan with mainland China. That's what China wants out of this. Whether they will get that, that is another story for another time. And now, as we move on to the fifth and final article of this third subsection, China and the United States is on a collision course for war over Taiwan. I firmly believe this. Let me get a drink real quick. Yes, I firmly believe this to be true. It is clear from everything that we have seen this year that China and the United States, as a result of the United States siding with Taiwan, China and the U.S. are on a collision course for war. I believe this will play into the future large-scale global conflict that is to take place one day. And it's all over nations like Taiwan, and in the case of Russia, it's all over Ukraine. It's clear that we're on a collision course for something that isn't good. And this article is once again living proof of that. We can only avoid a war by preparing for a war, said Taiwan's president, approaching the end of 2022 with a stern message for her people. Taiwan needs to strengthen our ability to defend ourselves, said, announcing that from 2024, compulsory military service would be extended from 4 months to a full year. Quote, nobody wants war, she said. But my fellow countrymen, peace will not just fall from the sky. The Taiwan dispute has not festered, or rather it has festered and it hasn't let up since the end of the Chinese Civil War of 1949, when the defeated nationalists fled to the island. The victorious communists have been determined to take it ever since. Now, the threat of war has seemed closer than at any time in previous decades. In August of this year, China launched its largest military exercises in a generation, seen by many as a rehearsal for a blockade or even perhaps a full-scale invasion. They fired missiles to the waters near Taiwan. They've conducted very large-scale air and sea exercises. They've conducted cyber attacks, said Taiwan's Foreign Minister Joseph Wu. Put it all together, right? Put together the fact that they have fired numerous missiles into the waters near Taiwan, and that they've conducted these large-scale air and sea exercises, and that they've conducted these cyber attacks. Put it all together. This is what they want to do to Taiwan when they want to officially invade Taiwan. It is, I believe, a matter of when, not a matter of if. Joseph Wu spoke to DW as part of a new documentary that uncovers why the Taiwan dispute is so intractable and explores whether a disastrous war could actually be avoided. Increasingly, China makes no bones about its goals. Quote, we in mainland China believe that Taiwan is part of China, and we have to reunify with Taiwan. According to Zhao Bo, a former senior colonel in China's military, now at a local university. The only question though, that remains is whether they will be peaceful or whether we will have to use force. I think that's pretty telling, if you ask me. Addressing the Communist Party Congress in October, Chinese President Xi Jinping said he would strive for the prospect of a peaceful reunification with the greatest sincerity and greatest efforts. Yeah, you say that as you're launching a bunch of cyber attacks and missiles into their waters. But yet, I'm supposed to believe that they really want to take a peaceful approach. Give me a break. Give me a break. It's very clear that China is willing to do whatever it takes to reunify with Taiwan and take it as its own. Now, whether they actually use military force, like they seem to be hinting at, that remains to be seen. But it's very clear to me that if this year has been so off the charts insane as it pertains to this conflict, what is 2023 going to bring? I think that's the golden question. If this year's been so insane, what's next year going to be like? I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Now, that will conclude number 3 as it pertains to China and Taiwan. Now, bear with me a moment. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the next 5 articles. For our 4th subsection, this is kind of one that I was personally looking forward to reporting on because this ties in with what the Bible refers to as the beast system and the subsequent mark of the beast that the left behind world will see during the 7-year tribulation period sometime after the rapture of the church has already taken place. So just bear with me real quickly for one moment. I'm going to go ahead and finish pulling these 5 up. And this will be our 4th subsection, which I have entitled Rise of Beast System Technology. Surveillance will follow us into the metaverse. I'm sure you all have heard a lot about the metaverse lately. And our bodies could be used as its new data source. Erin McDaniel joins her colleagues in the office about 3 days a week by popping on an Oculus headset from Facebook parent company Meta or clicking into a desktop application. She can maneuver through an exact replica of the brick-and-mortar Washington, D.C. office building her company left behind when it switched to remote work. McDaniel is the CEO of Environments, an interior design turned software company building so-called immersive work experiences based in virtual reality. And it's testing its own product. 5 employees work in the virtual office, each with their own avatar that kind of looks like them. According to MSN, the company takes care to make employee avatars resemble their human counterparts, only to a point too lifelike and they get creepy, too abstract and the whole thing starts to feel unprofessional, McDaniel said. But they're making the avatars resemble the actual employees to a certain extent. Employees marking work anniversaries have tiny celebratory icons above their avatars' heads, like in the computer game The Sims, for example. McDaniel can walk over to an employee's virtual desk and check in at any time. Despite the ramped up opportunity for managerial oversight, she said no employees have objected to the rise of this metaverse technology. Quote, I think there will be a merging of our physical and online personas, she said. Buzz around shared 3D virtual spaces that companies, including Meta, are pitching as the metaverse and may only get louder from here on. This year's CES was splattered with different companies billing themselves as metaverse technology, with ideas ranging from virtual customer service representatives to a food delivery robot controlled by real people watching from a perch in virtual reality. All are angling for space in an emerging industry spearheaded by tech giants including Meta and Microsoft, both of which announced their own metaverse products in the past few months. Even Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates weighed in, because of course he weighed in, saying he expects the metaverse to be part of our workplaces in the next 3 years. The Washington Post wants that virtual reality headsets can collect more data about us than traditional screens, which gives companies more opportunities to take and share that data for profiling and advertising reasons. They could also give employers more ways to monitor our behavior. and even our minds. That's always been my biggest personal gripe and concern with this. And now you even have these articles saying the same thing. There's little stopping the government from getting its hands on body related data from VR tech. And there's little in place to protect us and our kids from unrestricted data gathering and psychological manipulation, say digital rights advocates and experts following the industry closely. Digital rights advocacy group Electronic Frontier Foundation and the Extended Reality Safety Initiative, a nonprofit developing standards and advising lawmakers on safety in VR, have raised the alarm on the privacy concerns and the threats thereof that are being posed by big tech because of its vision for a metaverse. Not just threats to employees, but for people and their children at home, just your average ordinary citizens, could very well be threatened by the rise of this VR and metaverse related technology. In some respects, a 3D headset is not really any different than a 3D monitor, according to John Callis, director of technology projects at EFF. It starts with VR technology. But then what's it going to lead to? You know that China has their social credit scoring system. You know they're going to want to tie that in with global digital surveillance and all of these metaverse technologies. We know that this is leading to the rise of what is being referred to throughout biblical circles as the Great Reset, the one world government, the globalist. Let's start with Article 2. Elon Musk is closer than ever for human testing of implantable brain chips. This is known as Neuralink. Neuralink, the U.S. neurotechnology firm co-founded by billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk, has begun recruiting key employees to run its critical trials, signaling that it's inching closer than ever to starting human testing of its brain implants. RT reported that the company has posted advertisements to hire a clinical trial director and a clinical trial coordinator. The ads note that the staffers will work closely with some of the most innovative doctors and top engineers, as well as working with Neuralink's first clinical trial participants. Neuralink said the director will lead and help build its clinical research team and will develop regulatory interactions that come with a fast paced and ever evolving environment. Musk, who ranks as the world's richest person with a fortune estimated to be at $256 billion, said last month that he expects to have Neuralink brain chips implanted in humans sometime in 2022. That obviously did not end up happening. 2023 is now being considered the main target goal, pending approval for testing plans by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Musk and his Neuralink partners founded the company in 2016 to develop brain chips that connect humans with computers. He has claimed that the implants will enable paralyzed people to control such devices and smartphones with their brains. His company aims to provide solutions for many physical disabilities by bridging signals between neurons once human testing begins. The company publicly demonstrated the power of its technology last April of 2021, when it posted footage that claimed to show a monkey playing a video game with its mind. And last December, Musk said at an event that Neuralink hoped to begin human experiments sometime in 2022. Obviously, didn't end up happening. But instead of playing video games, a human trial will aim for therapeutic uses, such as helping paralyzed patients restore certain physical functionalities. We have a chance with Neuralink to restore full body functionality to someone who has a spinal cord injury. In other words, they're trying to placate God's role. They're trying to do miracles. This stuff is obviously of Satan. Musk said on Twitter last month, to implant a chip in a human, Neuralink will first need to go through a feasibility test with the FDA and then obtain the agency's approval for a pivotal device test. Musk is confident that the FDA will issue those green lights at some point. Observers stated that the ideal candidate for the position, based in Fremont, California, is expected to have an understanding of the clinical trial process from beginning to end and experience with implantable Class 2 or Class 3 medical devices, among other qualifications. Elon Musk is now closer than ever before to being able to start human trials for his implantable brain chip, Neuralink. Now, Article 3, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston has unveiled its design of digital currencies. Some members of the Federal Reserve are continuing to explore the launch of its own digital dollar, as the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston on Thursday unveiled its first attempt at designing an electronic form of cash. This was again the Thursday of February 6th. The Boston Bank's research, conducted in a collaboration with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, does not offer a recommendation about whether the Fed should create its own digital currency. The central bank's leaders in Washington are in the process of collecting public feedback on that question now. And the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome H. Powell, said it will only proceed with congressional authorization. But in the meantime, the Boston team said Thursday, the Thursday of February 6th, that it has solved some technical challenges such a product would need to solve in order to meet the recommendations of the Fed. Researchers have said they designed a system that can settle the vast majority of payments in less than 2 seconds, handles more than 1.7 million transactions per second, and operates around the clock with no service outages in the case of a disruption in its network. There has been no decision to move past this research phase. But if a CBDC was launched, it would be something that would have to evolve over time, according to an executive vice president at the Boston Fed. The first phase of the multi-year project, dubbed Project Hamilton, focused on developing software that is flexible and resilient. This is going to be leading to what is being deemed as a digital dictatorship. And that is what will be covered in this article. A digital dictatorship is coming, the power to monitor and control all transactions. Let me get a drink of water real quick, and then I will continue onwards. Okay, so article number 4 here. Governments and financial institutions are increasingly warming up to the idea of introducing central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Central banks' digital tokens pegged to a country's fiat money and controlled and backed by the authorities in ways that they never could with other money that they have issued. Unlike cryptocurrencies, which are private in nature, CBDCs will be issued and controlled by the central banks themselves. In many ways, it's the same as banknotes, but it's likely that every single transaction will be monitored for compliance. On Friday, the 14th of October, the IMF streamed a live video on YouTube called Central Bank Digital Currencies for Financial Inclusions, Risks and Rewards. Speakers were Her Majesty Queen Maxima of the Netherlands, who's also the UN Secretary General's special advocate for inclusive finance for development. And then he had Kristalina Georgieva, the managing director of the IMF, and Bo Lee, who was the deputy managing director. And then you also had Cecilia Skingsley, the BIS Innovation Hub director. They were all present at this live video meeting. It was all about global financial inclusion. That screams beast system to me, right? It's clear that our world's moving more towards a one world system with each passing day. And now they're coming out and saying that this is all about a global financial inclusion, which they have said has improved over the past 10 years. But almost a quarter of the world's adult population is still unbanked. It is hoped that central bank digital currencies would be affordable, widely accepted, and safe instruments which would address some of the issues surrounding financial inclusion, among other things. In other words, they're hoping that by issuing global currencies in a digital manner, it would incentivize more people to start trusting the banks. Yeah, with the way things are in our society today, I'm expected to trust the banks. Give me a break. With less than 5,000 views, the live stream went under the radar for many. But for those who are paying attention, it's clear they're wanting to test the waters with central bank digital currencies. A CBDC fan can improve financial inclusion by allowing government agencies and private sector players to program, according to Bo Lee. They want to be able to create smart contracts. Smart contracts are programs stored on a blockchain that run when predetermined conditions are met. Most of the time, they're used to automate agreement execution so everyone knows the outcome right away without any intermediaries. As a result of this potential programmability chip, government agencies can precisely target their support packages to the right people. CBDCs can't solve every financial inclusion challenge, but they can work together with financial literacy and digital literacy. CBDC will have to work with other policies like digital identities and wallets, let's say. This goes hand in glove with what the World Bank Group report titled CBDC for Cross Border Payment described back in November of 2021. We are seeing the rise of digital surveillance. We are seeing the rise of Neuralink related technologies, such as Neuralink itself, that Elon Musk is pushing. And we're seeing the rise of Federal Reserve banks sort of testing the waters with your digital currencies, such as CBDCs. And as a result, a digital dictatorship is coming. I believe that will be the new world order, the one world system that will eventually come upon the world. And as a result of all of this technology, experts are warning that artificial intelligence technology may replace humans in four key industries and leave billions of people without jobs. Artificial intelligence could one day replace human workers in four major industries, experts have claimed. In a new opinion piece for CNN, Peter Bergen says that for a while, experts have speculated that AI will replace humans in fields such as customer service, insurance underwriting, and manufacturing. But now Bergen has expressed concern that AI may also overtake writers. For the past several days, I have been hearing about the AI chatbot ChatGPT, Bergen writes. Users of the tool claim to be able to write coherent essays and op eds in seconds. I've actually heard of this program. It's definitely, I would say, concerning to say the least. It's yet another sign of the times as it pertains to artificial intelligence. Quote, so I signed up to give it a try and asked it to perform a task that I had hitherto believed required at least some level of skill. I asked ChatGPT to write an op ed in the style of Peter Bergen. So he asked it to write it in his own style, basically. The journalist shared the AI generated opinion piece and argued that while it was impressive, it did contain some factual errors. Bergen attributed the mistakes to the fact that ChatGPT was basically just created back in 2021 and may not have knowledge of current events. He then asked the AI powered tool a historical question about the role of women in the French Revolution. The answer, Bergen said, was not exactly like the work of leading historians, but did suggest a future in which college students will likely be able to submit long and complicated papers that are entirely generated by artificial intelligence. And then what does it mean to be educated at a liberal arts college? And why go to all the bother and all the expense? Bergen asked. He continued, so I head into 2023 with a sobering realization. My career as a CNN op ed writer, which began in earnest over a decade ago, may not exactly be over yet, since AI generated op eds make factual errors just as humans do. It might not be over yet, but it's heading in that direction. They're checking everything out through what they deem as the fact checking process. Quote, yet my writing career, this is once again Bergen, could still go the way of the grocery checkout jobs eliminated by automation. He noted that AI tools will keep getting smarter, and telling apart AI written op eds from real human ones will also get harder over time. As a writer and professor, that makes for a very dystopian style future. I promise this sentiment was not generated by AI, Bergen concluded. Experts are warning that artificial intelligence may actually be able to replace human beings in four key industries, amongst other areas, and could leave billions upon billions of people without jobs. And that's just the rise of beast system related technologies. You have your digital currencies, you have your global surveillance systems, you have the Chinese social scoring system, which is obviously continuing to get more and more communistic. Impressive, I know, as the days go on ahead. So that will conclude subsection number 4, entitled The Rise of Beast System Technology. Now, bear with me as we are going to go to our 5th and final subsection, entitled Lawlessness is Abounding. And I most certainly believe that to be the case. And unfortunately, it's only going to get worse in the days and months ahead. As I'm sure that you all know, you've been reading your Bible, you know that the last days, it's only going to continue to get worse and worse as we get closer to the final moments. But I will now start with this first article of Lawlessness is Abounding. And this had to do with shoplifting. Lawlessness is abounding as shoplifting is reaching crisis-level proportions. And look at that. I think that picture says it all. Shoplifting has gotten so bad nationally that chains like Rite Aid are closing their hard-hit stores, sending terrified employees home in Ubers, and locking up aisles of seemingly mundane items like deodorant and toothpaste. Retailers are already reeling from the scamdemic, supply chain woes, and labor shortage. Now they're combating systematic looting by organized crime gangs, which are growing more aggressive and violent. It's out of control. It is just out of control, according to Lisa LeBruno, SVP of Operations and Innovation at the Retail Industry Leaders Association, and what she had told Axios. A lot of the uptick is tied to the ease of reselling stolen goods online, plus the fact that consumers are buying more everyday goods online during the rise of the scamdemic. We have experienced a 300% increase in retail theft from our stores since the beginning of the scamdemic, according to CVS spokesman Michael DeAngelis and what he told Axios. At a Rite Aid that just closed its doors in Midtown Manhattan, more than $200,000 in goods were stolen in December and January of this year. It was December of 21 and January of this year. Per the New York Post, they come in every day, sometimes twice a day, with laundry bags and just load up on stuff. Now, according to a recent report from Fox 5 News, a nun who is a principal of a Catholic elementary school in California has been sentenced after she stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from the school for her own personal expenses, as well as to bankroll her own gambling habit, according to federal authorities in what they had found on Monday. And as if that's not enough, with shoplifting reaching record levels, a man has attacked a complete stranger with a machete, slicing her repeatedly in the Daytona Beach Waffle House. Police in Daytona Beach, Florida have arrested a man who carried out a gruesome attack on a complete stranger in a Waffle House early in March of this year, allegedly slicing her repeatedly with a machete. Pierre Kendrick, 34, is now charged with attempted first-degree murder for the heinous assault, which was captured by the restaurant's security footage, according to a report published by The Blaze. On the morning of February 24th, Daytona Beach police officers were called to the Waffle House, located at 329 Seabreeze Boulevard, in response to a possible stabbing. Upon arrival, they located a woman with multiple injuries to her hand and head. She told them she was the victim of an unprovoked attack by a man who was unknown to her. According to officers, a review of security camera footage showed the victim and suspect sitting together in a booth and talking. The suspect then got up and began to talk to others in the restaurant. Officers said that the suspect then walked back to the victim, pulled a machete out of his pants, and began to strike her repeatedly. The victim jumped over the counter and ran out of the back of the restaurant. Praise the Lord, she was able to get out. The suspect then left the restaurant and drove away in a red, newer model SUV. Investigators said the victim ran to a hotel along A1A, where she called police and was taken to the hospital as a trauma alert. Kendrick was taken into custody and appeared before a judge. If you bond out, you shall not possess any firearms or ammunition. Additionally, you would surrender any firearms to law enforcement. The suspect, Kendrick, is still waiting to be sentenced. Same time as all that, unfortunately, you have more lawlessness taking place throughout the year, as a gunman opened fire in a school in Russia, killing 13 and wounding 23. A gunman opened fire in a school in central Russia back in the month of September, killing 13 people and wounding 23 others before shooting himself dead, according to local authorities. The shooting took place in school number 88 in Izhevsk, a city 960 kilometers east of Moscow in the Udmurtia region. Russia's investigative committee identified the gunman as a 34-year-old, a graduate of the same school that he went in to shoot. Very unfortunate situation, and said he was wearing a black t-shirt bearing Nazi symbols. No details about his motives have been released. The governor of Udmurtia said that the gunman, who he said was registered as a patient at a psychiatric facility, killed himself after the attack. Brekalov said 9 out of the 13 victims were children, and so were 20 of those wounded. Earlier, Russia's investigative committee said 7 adults were among those wounded, and 7 out of 13 victims were children. So yeah, unfortunately, those numbers went up. The conflicting statements could not be immediately reconciled. It was then revealed that it was at least 9 children who unfortunately died in this incident, as well as numerous adults. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov described the shooting as a terrorist act. It's funny coming from Russia, as they continue to commit terrorist acts on Ukraine, and said Russian President Vladimir Putin has given all the necessary orders to the relevant authorities. President Putin deeply mourns deaths of people and children in the school, but completely ignores all the Ukrainian children who are dying. Where a terrorist attack took place, Peskov told reporters on Monday the school educates children between grades 1 and 11. It has been evacuated, and the area around it has been cordoned off, the governor said. Russia's National Guard said that there were 2 non-lethal handguns adapted to fire real bullets. The guns were not registered with the authorities. A criminal probe into the incident has been launched on charges of multiple murder and illegal possession of firearms. And then we come back here to the States, where the Walmart shooting took place. A Walmart shooter wrote that he was led by Satan before killing 6 people at a Virginia Walmart. The man accused of gunning down 6 co-workers inside a Walmart break room in Virginia wrote a note claiming that he had been led by Satan and complaining about his fellow employees and his troubles at work. The note, released by authorities, was discovered on the phone of Andre Bing, a 31-year-old accused of opening fire inside a Chesapeake, Virginia Walmart, where he worked as an overnight team leader. A pre-shift meeting was underway on Tuesday when Bing, armed with a pistol and several magazines, started shooting at his fellow employees. Sorry, everyone, but I did not plan this, as I promised things just fell in place like I was led by Satan, quote-unquote, the note said. According to police, Bing killed 6 people and wounded 4 others before turning the firearm on himself. Police said that he died from self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Prior to the massacre, Bing penned a short missive on his phone detailing how he was allegedly harassed and mocked by associates at the store. Bing also believed that his phone had been hacked. The screen also included a list of names he felt had either betrayed him or had been antagonizing him. Police redacted their names before its release. The gunman went on to recall how one employee gave him evil, twisted grins and, quote, looked me in the eyes terrified by a demonic aura, unquote. Bing also believed that some of the people he worked with had been trying to get rid of him since day one. He closed out by claiming that he was a loving person and saying that what he had wanted was to find a wife, but he didn't deserve one. That's unfortunate. My true intent was never to murder anyone, unquote. Believe it or not, I was actually one of the most loving people in the world if you would get to know me, Bing wrote. I just wanted a wife that was equally yoked as I, and obsessed over the thought, however, I didn't deserve a wife, unquote. Look, I understand those that are out there who may long for a partner, but that does not translate to going into a Virginia Walmart and shooting up the place, killing 6 people. Right? I mean, how desperate are some people, man? I don't get it. I really don't get it. I've been single for my entire 23-year life. Yeah, but that's been primarily out of choice. I have my reasons for viewing our society and a good percentage of modern women the way I do. I've made my choice. But then you have people like Bing, who is so desperate for wanting a partner that he's willing to go out there and commit heinous acts. I just think it's unfortunate, and it's yet another unfortunate example of the rise of lawlessness. And now, lastly, you have bands of looters who are stealing billions of dollars worth of merchandise as America continues to descend into lawlessness. 3 years ago, I bet that 99% of those of you watching this video right now, let alone reading the articles on the site, had never heard of ORC. Of course, by now, almost everyone knows that ORC stands for Organized Retail Crime, and it is prompting retailers to permanently shut down stores all over the nation. Right now, retail theft is happening from coast to coast on a scale that we have never seen in our entire nation's history. Marauding bands of looters are barging into stores, grabbing as much merchandise as they can possibly carry, and then loading it into their vehicles. Online marketplaces make it easier than ever to turn stolen goods into cash. And at this point, organized retail crime has become a multi-billion-dollar business. As has been repeatedly warned, America is descending into lawlessness. I think that might even be putting it lightly. The thin veneer of civilization that we all depend upon on a regular daily basis is rapidly disappearing. And if we stay on this path, our society will be soon completely unrecognizable. Every year, organized retail crime gets even worse. According to Fox Business, the number of ORC incidents in 2021 was 26.5% higher than it was in 2020. ORC incidents soared 26.5% on average in 2021, with 81.2% of retailers surveying reporting somewhat more or much more ORC associated aggression and violence year over year, according to the survey. Of course, things are even worse here in 2022, and this is particularly true in states where shoplifting laws are very soft. For example, in Portland, some stores are often victimized more than once a day as it pertains to ORC incidents. Some of the hot items are perfumes and expensive handbags, as you would figure. Often, stores are victimized daily and sometimes more than once a day. A local pastor whose window looks out on the local Nike store says he sees thieves running out of the store with their arms full of stolen stuff all the time. And the excellent KGW TV story makes the point that this stolen stuff is not to feed hungry children. It is organized theft. The stuff gets sold online and in flea markets. Needless to say, it is almost impossible to run a profitable business in such an environment, and many store owners are just throwing in the towel. They're just giving up altogether. In recent days, one store owner in Portland made headline news all over the nation by posting a note that explained exactly why the store is being closed. A Portland, Oregon clothing shop is closing down permanently. And earlier this month, after facing a string of break-ins, posted a note. Our city is in peril. A printed note posted on the Reigns PDX store reads, according to KATU2, small businesses and large cannot sustain doing business in our city's current state. We have no protection or recourse against the criminal behavior that goes unpunished. Do not be fooled into thinking that insurance companies cover losses. We have sustained 15 break-ins. We have not received any financial reimbursement since the third, quote unquote. Sadly, organized retail crime is not just plaguing cities on the West Coast. This is truly a national phenomenon. And large retail chains are losing ginormous amounts of money because of it. In fact, Target recently caused quite a stir when it admitted that organized retail crime accounts for most of the 400 million, might as well be 400 billion, $400 million that it has lost from shoplifting over the past year. Shoplifting is such a big problem that last week, when officials from Target were explaining why the company's profit fell by 50% in the third quarter, they mentioned shoplifting as a contributing cause. Target Chief Growth Officer Christina Hennigan said that Target shoplifting has jumped about 50% year over year. Target estimates shoplifting has cost the retailers $400 million, and that most of that, Hennington said, has come from organized retail crime. If things are already this bad, what will happen when economic conditions in this country really start deteriorating even further in 2023 and beyond? I think that should really be deemed as the golden question. The more desperate people become, the worse organized retail crime will be. At this point, thievery has reached such epic proportions that some retailers are actually considering locking up all of their merchandise. Back in September, on an earnings call with investors, Rite Aid's executive vice president of retail, Andre Persaud, floated an idea to improve the chain's performance in New York City. Turn the drugstore into one giant vending machine in order to fight shoplifting. We're looking at literally putting everything behind showcases to ensure the products are there for customers to buy, Prasad said. Does that sound familiar? Many big city pharmacy chains are halfway there, with plexiglass cases that have mushroomed over even low priced household goods like shampoo and deodorant, to say nothing of laundry detergent, razor blades, and baby formula. It's like shopping in a pharmacy 100 years ago, with a white aproned clerk pushing around a ladder to grab your tinctures and tonics, except now it's a minimum wage cashier with a key ring. These days, you press a red button and a loudspeaker tells the store that you have a foot fungus, for example. In July, a Manhattan Duane Reade made international news when it placed a can of spam, in a theft deterrent plastic case. If it's gotten that bad that you have to put spam in a case like that, that's how you know that our society has gone to hell in a handbasket. I think that's putting it lightly. If this trend catches on, the way that we shop could change forever. The days of just going in and quickly gathering what you need could soon be gone permanently. And it is all because our society is becoming completely and utterly lawless. And you think it's bad now? Just wait and see what 2023 has to offer. All right, so that is where we are as a world, and that is where we are as a society as we prepare to close out 2022. So, one last little recap before I conclude this with the gospel. Subsection 1, we talked about natural disasters, the record heat in Australia, Hurricane Nicole, deadly tornado outbreaks in the Deep South, the Buffalo blizzard. Then we talked about the Russia-Ukraine crisis, which saw the first wave of Russian attacks leaving many, many dozens dead. And then, of course, since then, the Russia-Ukraine war has reached dangerous levels, with numerous missile attacks being exchanged all throughout Ukraine's big cities. And Russia is continuing to deploy a bunch of troops as they have launched over 120 rockets and kamikaze drones into Ukraine. Then you have the China-Taiwan situation, where China continuously flies dozens of warplanes over Taiwanese airspace. It's usually within their waters. And tensions are continuing to rise between the nations as they both seem to be gearing up for a potential conflict. Then you had the rise of beast system technology, whether that be global digital surveillance, a digital currency, Neuralink, the Federal Reserve Bank starting to test the waters for CBDCs, leading to what I believe is a digital dictatorship that is coming upon our world very soon, as experts also warn that AI may replace humans in the decades to come in those four key industries. And then you had this fifth and final subsector. Lawlessness is abounding. We talked about shoplifting, it's reaching epic proportions within crisis levels. Then you had people who were just being heinous towards one another. The man attacked a stranger repeatedly in a machete in a Daytona Beach Waffle House. You had a gunman that opened fire in a Russian school. You had a Walmart shooter that killed 6 in a Virginia store. And then you have bands of looters that are stealing billions upon billions of dollars worth of merchandise all over the country as we continue to descend further into lawlessness. Well, that concludes my year-end review for 2022. As I look currently, we've been going an hour and 44 minutes. This is by far the longest video I have ever done in the history of my ministry that has existed since August 20th of 2019. I give all the praise and glory to the Most High God. I praise the Lord that I'm still here able to give you guys updates. And if things are like this now, just think, What are they going to be like next year? What are they going to be like the year after? That part remains to be seen. Well, brothers and sisters, that will conclude your year-end review for December 31st, 2022. I'm going to go ahead and pull up eSword, which is my online digital Bible program. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up now and make sure to drag it over to this monitor so you all can see it. And we're going to go to the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 15, verse 1 through 4, which says the following. Moreover, brethren, I declare unto you the gospel which I preached unto you, which also ye have received and wherein ye stand, by which also ye are saved, if ye keep in memory what I preached unto you, unless ye have believed in vain. For I delivered unto you first of all that which I also received, how that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the third day according to the Scriptures for our justification and therefore our salvation. Jesus Christ did it all. He paid our sin debt in full on that cross to tell us, it is finished. Jesus Christ is the Son of God, God the Son, the second part of the Trinity. He died on the cross, shedding his precious, purifying blood for the remission of all mankind's sins, that's past, present, and future sins. He was buried in the tomb 3 days, proving that he was dead, and he rose again the third day, according to the Scriptures, for our justification and therefore our salvation. I want to go ahead and read John chapter 3, verses 16 through 18, which I believe tie in beautifully with the gospel message that I've just shared with you all. It says, For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He that believeth on him is not condemned, but he that believeth not is condemned already, because he hath not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. That is what it comes down to, is whether or not you have trusted solely in the finished work of Christ alone, his death, burial, and resurrection to serve as the complete payment for sin. Do you believe that Jesus died for your sins, was buried, and on the third day rose from the dead? Do you believe that that alone is enough to save you? If so, then you are saved and sealed with the Holy Spirit until the day of redemption. A paraphrase of Ephesians chapter 4, verse 30. There is nothing that can ever separate you from the hand of our precious Savior. You are God's forever, right at the moment that you believe. Jesus did it all. All you have to do is trust in him and believe that he did that for you. And I want to finish by reading Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 and 9, which says, For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. We know that grace, by definition, is getting what we don't deserve, which God has offered to us as the free gift of salvation. And we accept and receive that free gift once and for all, past, present, and future, by faith alone, in the finished redemptive work of Jesus Christ alone. I pray, if you're watching this video right now and you're a non-believer, or if you're a believer and you know of non-believers that you can send this video to, I pray that you would believe the gospel of Christ alone now while you have that chance. Because believe it or not, tomorrow's not guaranteed to us. Right? I'm sure you've heard of all of the articles that have come out of people who are dying suddenly. Like, that just proves we don't know when our expiration date on this planet is. Our life is but a vapor. We're here 1 second, we're gone the next. There's no guarantee that you'll be here a week from now, a month from now, even an hour from now. That is why it is imperative that you believe the gospel of Christ alone now while you have that chance. Because time is of the essence. If there's one thing that we've learned going through all of these news articles, year after year after year after year, it's that something's got to give. And what I believe that is the forthcoming rapture of the church for all believers in Christ. I pray you believe on the Lord Jesus Christ in his death, burial, and resurrection now while you have the chance, so that you may be raptured when it happens. All right, that will conclude my year-end review and recap video for 2022. my 4th annual year-end review. I did one in 2019, 2020, 2021, and now the one here today for 2022. Hard to believe, once again, that we're already at the end of another year, but at the rate that time's going by, before we know it, we're already going to be at the end of next year. It's just insane how fast time is going by. But I just wanted to come on here, give you guys your year-end review for 2022. I pray that you all have been blessed by my ministry, and I hope that you all have enjoyed this recap. All right, I will leave you off there. I will see you all in the next video, whenever it is, should the Lord tarry. Otherwise, God bless you all. All right, see you in 2023.